thank you for listening and supporting the Daily Memphian. Sign up for one of our many free newsletters and breaking news alerts at dailymemphian.com/email to receive the latest local news stories impacting our community. Our weekly newsletters cover everything from sports to arts and culture, business, food, and more, along with daily updates of all the news we publish each day. Sign up or manage your email preferences at dailymemphian.com/email.
I'm Bill Dries with the Daily Memphian. We are joined by Doctor Earl Fisher, co-founder of the Memphis People's Convention. This is on the record. We record this August 4th, 2023. The People's Convention is set for August 10th through the 12th at the Memphis Sports and Events Center at Liberty Park. As this three-day gathering approaches, the Memphis elections that are on the ballot October 5th, with the early voting starting September 15th, have moved from speculation to a ballot that is now set. So, Earl, let's go over the basic framework for what happens on these 3 days, and then we'll get deeper into some of the details and the issues involved here.
Yeah, Brother Bill, thank you, not just for this opportunity, but for the way that you have covered our efforts and initiatives over the last few months, actually for the last few years. We deeply appreciate it, and we know how valuable this information is to the people who are the constituents that we want to reach out to and to your listening audience. So on each night, well, I can't say each night because Thursday and Friday is in the evening from 6 to 8, but on Saturday it's in the afternoon from 12 to 2. But each day we will actually have, some opening remarks. Some of our sponsors will make some remarks. Some of our community partners will make some remarks. We are having people in the community who represent some of these certain offices in times past, who could add some perspective from an executive or administrative standpoint to get some remarks. And we'll have a panel grounded in some of the issues that are directly impacted by some of these offices. Then we'll have some of the candidates offer up their conversations or their stump speeches, if you will. We'll do some caucusing. We'll do a mock election, and then we'll report back and wrap up. So on August 10th, we'll look at the single member districts. August 11th, we'll look at the super districts. And August 12th, we'll look at the mayor's race. As of last count, I think total, if we count all of the offices, we're at about 22 candidates total. I think we have about 7 or 8 of the mayoral candidates, about 3 in City Council District 3, 1 in District 5, 1 in District 6, 2 in District 7, 1 in 8-1, 2 in 8-2, 5, I think, in 8-3, and none in any of the Super District 9 positions as of yet. So definitely hoping people will come out and get access to the information and the individuals that can help them shape their opinion on who they should vote for in October.
Okay. And a bit more about the mechanics. 4 years ago, the People's Convention used a form of ranked choice or instant runoff voting. And I believe, were there some folks who watched this online who voted? Was that how it worked in 2019?
That's a good question. I don't think we had people online who voted, even though, if somebody wanted to be conspicuous about it, they probably could have shot some of the information to some of the people. And we don't think that that'll be the case even this time. Of course, we'll be streaming from the Up the Vote 901 Facebook page and the Up the Vote 901 YouTube channel. But in terms of the caucusing and the voting, we want that to only happen from the people who are there, present, and accounted for at the event itself. We tried to do something insofar as ranked choice voting was concerned in 2019. We hope to try to implement something similar this time, but we also might be relegated to, especially on the first night, because we are trying to make this precinct specific. So we might be relegated to paper ballots, go figure, on the first night, and then have to play it by ear on the next few nights. So whatever kind of technical mechanics and maneuvers we have to make to ensure that the vote is accurate and representative of the body that is present, we'll do the best we can to make that happen.
From the early planning stages on this and just about any organization of a political forum this year, there has been a lot of discussion around the idea that the mayor's race was probably going to have a lot of candidates since the incumbent Jim Strickland is term limited. And you've been very clear that you think that without a runoff provision or without city partisan primaries, the black vote in particular in our majority black city will be split, making it likely that the winner of the mayor's race will win with less than a majority of the votes cast. So how does the People's Convention approach that? Do you try to tell people to get out of the race now that the ballot is set at 17 candidates in the case of the mayor's race? Some of the council races have pretty healthy fields as well. What is your approach to that now that the Election Commission has set the ballot for this?
Well, again, I think we have to keep trying to play it by ear for the most part because we don't have the leverage to require anybody to get out of the race. What we do believe we have is access to a strong constituency that can express where they perceive viability to be relative to the number of candidates that are going to participate. As such, whoever comes out of there, I think will have some momentum going into the final home stretch, if you will, leading into October. And, maybe at some point after the convention, we can have some conversation with some of the candidates. But the fact is, Bill, we just don't have that kind of leverage. And I don't try to overpromise and underdeliver. If anything, we want to underpromise and overdeliver. And where I feel like our value is in the fact that I think it was Hit Strategies that put a poll out that said 48% of voters were undecided as of a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. And so this is an opportunity to help them decide, because I think some of that lack of decision making was due to, maybe a lack of information relative to candidates' platforms or just where we were in the election cycle. So hopefully we can build towards a consensus candidate. And regretfully, we won't be able to shrink the field down on the ballot from 17 to, whoever is more or less viable. But I still think this is invaluable insofar as giving people access to the information that they need to feel empowered and engaged and ultimately turn out to vote.
A few weeks ago, you called for voters to set some criteria for candidates in the field. And the criteria you talked about were name recognition, favorability, fundraising capacity, endorsements, the state of their campaign organizations, and polling. And you said, and I quote here, this is about probability, not ideology. So in other words, get real about who the contenders are and who has a realistic shot at actually winning this race, right?
Yes, you are absolutely right. And this is irrespective of where I or some of our constituents may stand in terms of people's personal political campaign. We have to be realistic about the landscape. We have to be realistic about how certain candidates, and take, for instance, Mayor Harrington or Sheriff Bonner, who have, in Harrington's case, chosen not to participate in any debates, or in Bonner's case, piecemeal the debates that he's been willing to participate in because they are banking on name recognition. Up to Vote 901 has been engaged in trying to raise the profile and the consciousness of the community relative to some of these particulars, such that name recognition cannot be a tool of political manipulation. But the fact is, we just simply aren't there yet. So you have to look at how name recognition lands in the general public and how candidates use that as a tactic. And so if we're going to be honest, which I believe we have been honest and forthright since we started doing this work, we have to communicate to the community, regardless of how you feel about these people personally, regardless about how you feel about their ideologies or their particular platforms. There are certain people who have a higher probability of winning in October than others do. So I might have a personal favorite, but if that personal favorite has a 10% chance in terms of viability, we have to communicate that to the public if we actually want them to be adequately engaged and equipped and educated on the issue. So that's the rationale insofar as viability is concerned. It's not about what is possible. I come from a faith tradition that says with God, all things are possible, but it doesn't say with God, all things are probable. So it's probably not likely that some of these people will win the office. And I think the general community needs to know that.
At the withdrawal deadline last month, two mayoral contenders got out of the mayor's race, Frank Colvett, who's on the city council, and George Flynn, who's a former Shelby County commissioner. Both candidates that were expected to share supporters with Sheriff Floyd Bonner. What does that do you think, to your calculations for the mayor's race?
Well, I don't think I've made any concrete calculations that would allow me to objectively articulate what I think that might mean. I think it remains to be seen. I think the way that you have described it is valuable. I think people are saying that there may be some collusion or teamwork, if you will, between, Sheriff Bonner's campaign, George Flynn, Frank Colvett. Who knows? I don't know. I can say that I don't know. And it'll be I'm curious to see how it all is going to pan out. But that's not the position that we're trying to take right now, which is trying to decide, which campaigns may be in conversation or collusion with one another and what other political strategies people may be trying to deploy. But I do think it is ironic. And if you are correct insofar as this speculation that these particular candidates share the same demographic as Sheriff Bonner, I think that's peculiar because you're looking at a majority Black city. And by most accounts, the majority of the citizens want representation that reflects not only their ideologies and their issues, but their ethnicity as well. And so, the way you framed it is as if, Bonner is the great white hope in blackface. So I don't know if that's true. I think that remains to be seen. But just the mere fact that has to be part of the conversation, I think, people with a higher pay grade than mine need to do some commentating on that. And I think even Sheriff Bonner needs to say something about what that may mean about his particular campaign. I don't think he's discussed much regarding the issues of racial demographics and the electorate. But I'd like to hear every candidate in every office articulate their stance and understanding of what that means for their particular campaign.
And we should also point out that the withdrawal deadline is a pretty concrete thing. At this point, other candidates could conceivably say that they are out of the race, but their name would still be on the ballot. So that kind of makes it less likely that someone else is going to drop out between now and Election Day, because it's kind of a weaker gesture since your name is still on there. And if you've been campaigning, some folks may not know that you've pulled out of the race and are going to go ahead and vote accordingly, I guess.
Well, Bill, I think you're right. So what this ultimately would cause for, in order to try to develop some cohesion from the Black community relative to organizing our vote, is probably going to take some unprecedented maneuvering from some of the candidates. I would love to see it. I am much more of a pragmatic realist than a naive optimist, so I don't think it's going to happen. But I would love to see someone finally step up and say, based upon the metrics and the projections, I have come to understand that my candidacy following through to October would probably work to diminish the Black vote. So I will withdraw, and maybe even that person could name whoever they feel like is the best candidate. I've said this in some sidebar conversations, and I don't think it is too subjective. I think I'm just being honest. As I have heard Mayor Harrington articulate his desire to raise up a new leader, what I have been thinking is he has the power right now to name whoever the next mayor is, except for naming himself. It's a struggle and a battle, as I think all of us know. If he remains in the race through October, that most people are not going to be, and by most people, I mean 50% of the electorate is not going to vote any of them into office. We know that, as you stated earlier. But I think most of the people who turn out probably won't vote for Mayor Harrington. That does not mean that he can't win. He very well might win. But I would be willing to bet that if he came out today and said, hey, I think I had a good run at it. Part of my desire is to make sure that the next generation of leadership steps up and has adequate insight and counsel and advisement. And I'm willing to offer that. And today I'm encouraging everybody to vote for Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. I think whoever he names would become the front runner instantaneously, and in all likelihood have the momentum needed to organize the Black vote. But again, that would require some unprecedented courage and selflessness. And I think there is too much blind ambition in the political infrastructure right now, and that's not limited to the mayor's race. I think the same is true city council, county commission, you name it. I think people are much more concerned about their personal platform and what the office might do for them than actually what they could do with the office for the people who they would be elected or appointed to serve.
Let's talk about new blood in terms of another goal of Up the Vote 901, and that has been increasing participation in elections and bringing in new voters. From looking at the voter data, there has been some growth in new voters in the system, and younger voters in particular have shown some movement. So the needle has moved there. But from your experience in this, is it the kind of moving of the needle that you think really pops up for one particular election, or is it probably a more gradual change than that?
You know my advocacy and activism and organizing enough to know I'm not a big fan of gradualism, but I do think that that's the case, and that's where we are. And that is despite like Herculean efforts from Up to Vote 901 and other community partners who have been doing some wonderful grassroots and even some grass tops work to raise the profile of these elections, right? As we are speaking right now, the numbers have come in from the Nashville election. And the Nashville, I think it was metro election, landed about 100,000 voters. Nashville has about 40 or 50,000 people more than the city of Memphis. And as I recall from 2019, your numbers are better than mine. You're looking at about close to 100,000 voters in the city of Memphis, which is somewhere between 25 to 28% turnout, which when you start talking about adequate representation is just way below the bar. So even if the needle is moving in the right direction, we can salute some of that as progress. Up the Vote is committed to continuing to do this. It does not matter. I said this in 2019, and you can go verify this. It does not matter what the outcome is. We will still be here doing this work because we feel that it is necessary work for our people. But we would love to see the turnout, reasonably get to the low to mid 30s in this election. And if we could start pushing it closer to the 40 percentile, I think we would see more of what we want to see in our communities from the standpoint of the Memphis City budget, housing and the environment, labor and wages, education and crime and public safety that people want to see at the living room level, at the neighborhood level, and at the kitchen table level. But as long as we continue to have to do, 1,000 or 1,000,000 times work to get, $2 worth of return, I think we'll still be on what I call like this unholy hamster wheel of regression or lack of progress. So if you got the answer, Brother Bill, or if any of your listeners had the answer to how to do this, we are definitely open in terms of our ears and our arms and our eyes. But as it stands right now, we'll continue to do these types of events to make sure people have the engagement, the education, and the empowerment to up to vote.
All right. A final point here about the council races, because those are also important. 7 votes on the 13-member council is the key to getting anything done on that body. So are you looking at these races with the idea of a voting block on certain issues when it comes to what the council does?
So all of our efforts, including the People's Convention or the Memphis People's Summit that we do in off-year elections, is grounded in the Memphis People's Agenda. Every candidate is asked whether they support the agenda and how they will enact the agenda in their respective offices. So even when some of the candidates have not won the consensus vote, take J.B. Smiley, for instance, who did not win in 2019 at the People's Convention, I think it's fair to say the way that he has governed in the office has been reasonably aligned with the agenda. And so in a sense, you always want there to be some cohesion and comprehensive approach to getting the problem solved by the people in the offices that have been elected and appointed by the people who represent the majority of the constituency in the city, or when it's the county elections, the county. Can you guarantee that? No. Is there always going to be political gamesmanship? Absolutely. Some of that is par for the course. And I think we would be unrealistic if we did not allow for some of that to take place. But we would also be naive if we did not try to organize votes so that we won't have to come back in 2027 and not have a partisan primary or not have somebody have to win 50 plus 1% of the vote in order to get in office.
Right. And we should point out that I think you have J.B. Smiley coming to the convention, and he is running unopposed. He and Dr. Jeff Warren, the 2 council members who do not have opposition on the ballot. So there's value in him coming nevertheless, right?
Absolutely. I think he values, and you can ask him himself, he values the work that we're trying to do and what it means for righteous representation in public office. We think about Michael and Easter Thomas, who was the People's Convention choice in 2019, that actually pulled off a major upset when she unseated, at the time, the chairman of the city council, Berlin Boyd.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was major. Martavius Jones, who is the current chair, is going to participate. Patrice Robinson, who is on her way out, is going to participate. We've had, I believe, reasonable representation and engagement from people in elected office. County Mayor Lee Harris is going to be participating, and DA Mulroy is going to be participating. It looks like, in all likelihood, Judge Sugarman is going to be participating. I mean, these are people who I think it is important for us to hear from insofar as what the landscape of politics looks like now from their vantage point. And they're also privy to the things that we have been pushing for relative to the people's agenda. And so as long as we stay on this road of what one scholar calls the long obedience in the same direction, I think we'll see more of that. But as you pointed out earlier, the needle is moving in the right direction, but I sure pray for some divine winds to blow so that they move faster.
All right. That's where we will leave it. We have been talking with Dr. Earl Fisher, who is the co-founder of the Memphis People's Convention, which again happens August 10th through August 12th at Liberty Park. I'm Bill Dries, and this has been On the Record.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.